Hello and greetings from UB. On behalf of the Office of Alumni Engagement and the UB School of Management, we are delighted you are able to join us for today's webinar presentation. My name is Christy Fields and I manage the Alumni Lifelong Learning Program here at UB. I am also joined by my wonderful colleague Joy Rona, who will assist in monitoring any questions. We are both so grateful you are able to join us today, and we hope you and your family are staying well. It is my honor to welcome today's featured presenter, UB alumnus Al Katerinsky. Al is a professor with the UB School of Management. He is UB's first recipient of the Scholarship for Service grant for the National Science Foundation and was awarded a Certificate of Advanced Study in Information Assurance. Al has worked in industry, education, and the federal government, including the FTC and HUD. In today's webinar, Al will speak on the topic of information security and how it is a complex field and how it's easy to get lost in the technical details. This presentation will explore how to prioritize, plan, and deploy preventive and reactive responses to the issues we face in keeping our data secure and our privacy intact. We will leave some time during today's webinar for Q&A. If you have any questions during the presentation, please just submit them through the GoToWebinar taskbar. You're going to see a question section on your screen, and you can chat those to us at any time. In addition, we will be recording today's session, and we'll send you all a copy within the next 24 hours. So with that said, it's my pleasure to turn it over to our featured presenter, UB alumnus and faculty member, Al Katerinsky.
Welcome. So glad you could make it today to our presentation on InfoSec as a management issue. After an introduction like that, I don't really have a lot to say about myself. So if there's no objections, I'm just going to go right into it. So here we go. And I'm going to turn off my webcam here. InfoSec as a management issue, or no, I'm not just trying to make your life difficult. Let's start with some definitions. Security, the state of being free from danger or threat. Wouldn't that be nice? Information security is the state of being protected against the unauthorized use of information, especially electronic data, or the measures taken to achieve this, and it's shortened to InfoSec. InfoSec is largely achieved through a multi-step risk management process that identifies assets, threat sources, vulnerabilities, potential impacts, and possible controls, followed by an assessment of the effectiveness of the risk management plan. The primary focus is the balanced protection of the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data, known as the CIA triad, while maintaining a focus on efficient policy implementation, and all without hampering organization productivity. So, what is confidentiality? These are easy concepts. Confidentiality is only authorized users can view the information. Integrity, only authorized users can change information. So what you're sending out or what you're recording maintains its integrity, that it was what you gave it. Confidentiality, integrity, then the last one is availability. Information is accessible by authorized users whenever they request the information. Sometimes these seem to be at odds with each other. Confidentiality may seem at odds with availability because you want only authorized users to get to it, but the trick is to identify who those authorized users are so it can be available to them. So it's getting the right information to the right people at the right time. And here is a graphic representation of that triangle. Okay, these are 3 tenets of information system security. So why is it a management issue? Research has shown that most vulnerable points in most information systems is the human user, operator, designer, or other human actor. Risk is a management issue. InfoSec management is an extension of the risks a business faces. Budgeting is a management issue. You have to set priorities as to what is the most important mission-critical systems to protect. There has to be accountability. So that means that people will know that they have to take care of their section of the information security picture. Policies, procedures, and training are also management issues. What we need to do in most businesses, and sadly does not occur even today, is create awareness and direction and a sense of urgency that people realize this is not a game. We are all in InfoSec. If the company loses security and has a breach, the employees lose. We are all in this together. What else is at stake? Let's talk about the assets that have a substantial value. Customer data, and these are the information assets. Okay. Customer data, name, address, phone, social security number, the date of birth, cardholder data, protected healthcare information. All of these things have value. If they didn't have value, people wouldn't be trying to steal from you. IT assets and network infrastructure, hardware, software, and services also have value. Intellectual property, sensitive data such as patents, source codes, formulas, or engineering plans. Finances and financial data, bank accounts, credit card data, and financial transaction data. Service availability and productivity, the ability of computing services and software to support the productivity for humans and machinery. And of course, reputation, corporate compliance, and brand image are very important. This also is subject to the kind of business you're in. If you are in a bank, you absolutely have to protect the reputation for security above everything else, because otherwise you are in trouble. A company that has been impacted by an incident can be adversely financially impacted through, and not every occurrence is an incident. Okay, we'll talk about this a little later on, but the financial impacts start with loss of productivity. Time is money. You have to spend time fixing the problem. You have to shut the systems down to see what's been taken, what's been destroyed, what needs to be restored. Direct financial theft. Money is money too. The cost of forensic investigation, and these can be substantial, especially if you don't have an in-house forensics department. Fines and penalties, regulatory, compliance issues with saying when and how your system has been breached can cost you money. There are fines, and not just federal fines, but state and local fines. Payment of reparations and credit monitoring for affected customers. Okay, I'm a veteran, and I believe it was 2007, the VA lost 25 million records of health care records from veterans for many decades, and it cost them potentially $1,800 per record. For the record-keeping section of the VA, this is close to their annual budget. So if you have, say, 10,000 records, even something small as 10,000 records, could be catastrophic for a standard business to have to pay for credit monitoring. The gradual loss of business resulting from the damage to reputation. And this is something that is less powerful now than it used to be, because people see getting a breach in your security is part of the cost of doing business. But it depends on the kind of business. Most recently, we had a SolarWinds attack through the, we're going to use a word that's normally used for physical objects, a supply chain. Systems get updated and patched regularly, and it gets sent through an automated system. And for decades, they've been telling us, okay, the next big attack is going to come through the supply chain. Well, guess what? Last year it hit. SolarWinds updates got affected by, well, let's just put it this way. There was a breach that allowed the system pardon me, I have a bit of an issue here. A breach that allowed the system to distribute malware to every company that was getting an automated update, an automated patch. And that includes many parts of the federal government. It went unnoticed for months, and these things tend to get everywhere. So it may be a real issue for a very long time cleaning this up. Let's look at some of the things that try to protect your privacy data and some of the regulations that we have. FIPA and FERPA protect educational information. FISMA, the Federal Information Security Management Act, basically it said the government should protect your personal data like it's their data. Corporates, SOX, Sarbanes-Oxley, HIPAA, the Health Information Portability and Accountability Act. This is something basic in information security. It says that your information belongs to you and nothing is more vital than your health information. Banking and insurance has the regulations of Gramm-Leach-Bliley, GLBA, and retail uses PCI DSS, which is not a federal, but rather a global standard from the pay card industry, digital standards to protect data and ensure confidence in the pay card industry method of doing business. Okay, so privacy must be protected and security controls are required to protect privacy data. This is one of those things, you don't really have privacy if you don't have security. And people forget that sometimes. What else is at stake? Potential costs of a breach. Recent studies indicate that the average cost of a privacy breach to a small business was in the range of $50,000 to $75,000, with some much higher. The average breach costs the company $200 per record, which might not sound like much until you do the math. So if you have 10,000 records at $200 a piece, it's $2 million. Okay, 100 at 20K, 10 million records, it's $2 million. And away we go. Is this a real issue? Oh, yes. Okay, this is from a website called informationisbeautiful.net, and this is not the whole picture by any means. But these are done, the larger the circle, the larger the number of records that are lost in terms of data breaches. It's organized by year and by industry, and you can do filters. If you'd like, go to that website and just check the different industries and see what's been taken there. It might be fun for you to do that, and then again, it might not be so much fun. But anyway, look at some of these things. These are not, small operations. 420 million records from Facebook, 250 million records from Microsoft, Marriott, 383 million records, SpamBot, Twitter. All of these things have been breached within the last year. Okay, so that's what's going wrong. How do we make it a success? First and foremost, we need to raise the level of awareness of the information our systems and networks contain. Security isn't just about developing technical solutions. In a broader perspective, it's about identifying a company's most vital information and deciding what needs protecting. Management teams need to be capable of assessing the consequences of a threat in various operation situations, using qualified input values from employers to make well-informed business or operational decisions. In broad terms, the risk management process consists of identification of assets and estimating their value, and this means inventory. Okay, inventory everything you've got. You need an inventory of your processes, of your procedures, of your data stores, of your hardware and software, and the people that work on them. Then you conduct a threat assessment. There are known threat assessments for different kinds of businesses that you can get from the FBI and industry associations. But your threat assessment has to be personalized to what is the most important, that is to say, mission critical systems within your organization. You conduct a vulnerability assessment, and for each vulnerability, calculate the probability that it will be exploited. Again, like I said, there are numbers for the kinds of vulnerabilities that exist, and calculate the impact of each threat would have on each asset. Finally, you identify, select, and implement appropriate controls, and evaluate the effectiveness of the control measures. Management must ask, how well does our capability match the current threat situation in our operating environment? What are the organization's most important assets? And there's a saying in information security, if you protect your feathers the same way you protect your diamonds, you'll lose less feathers, but you'll lose more diamonds. How do cybersecurity risks affect the business goals and strategies? And how do we manage our risks, threats, and potential attackers? Beyond this, are we complying with the relevant standards and regulations? Have we done what they call due care, D-U-E, care, and due diligence? Have we taken care? Have we done enough research in our diligence to make sure we are doing the right thing? How do we compare with others when it comes to our security level, investments, etc.? Is it a competitive advantage or a competitive disadvantage? What incidents have occurred? Do we have problems now? What caused these incidents and what have we done about them? What lessons have we learned? And are we getting better at cybersecurity and risk management? Because that's the goal. Continuous improvement. What we're up against. Here are some animated maps of the kind of attacks that we're going to see. Let's take a look at some of them. Not all of them are functioning at the same time. 7 live cyber attack maps. Okay, so here are 7 on one page. Let's go take a look back at what I've got here. This is the Kaspersky security organization. They sell security software, and they are keeping track of the attacks as they come around the world, from around the world to us, from us. And you can rotate the world to see an awful lot of stuff coming out of this one spot in Russia, large amounts of things coming from Europe, okay, from the United States, oddly enough, a lot from Brazil. Let's take a look at another one. Let's see if the live threat map is working today. No, huh? Okay, so my free trial is up for that. So back to Kaspersky. Let's see what else we got. FortiGuard. All right. So here we see this animated of the kinds of attacks that are coming from all sorts of places. Southeast Asia, from Europe to the United States. Now remember, it doesn't mean that these are actually being done by people in those countries, but these are the IP addresses that they're coming from. You can have aggregations of services that are hosted in another country called co-locations or carrier hotels. And some of them are pretty impressive. Let's take a look. FireEye. FireEye are the ones who figured out the latest attack through the supply chain through solar winds. Now, there's a lot to that, but FireEye also, at one point, found where 75% of the spam was coming from at a co-location hotel in California, and they shut it down. And the amount of spam on the internet was reduced by 3/4 for about 3 weeks until the original principals in Estonia found a new place to launch their attacks from. Threat map from Bitdefender. Okay, have we woken up yet? If you're old enough to remember the movie War Games, this is the War Games version of information security. This is what's going on. The attacks are coming all the time. So this is night and day without end, because some people come awake when we go to sleep. Okay. Threatbut.com. Internet hacking attack attribution map. This is trying to find out where these things are really coming from. That's the value in this. If we let these things go, the screen will be filled with attacks. But I just want to let you know that this is the kind of environment we're actually working in. And technology only does so much. You have to have people alert to it. The best lock on the door is not going to happen is not going to help unless you lock the door. Okay. Privacy rights org data breaches. Okay, we could go to that site too, but get the idea. You can break out by individual breaches, how many records were lost, and how many breaches they have been keeping track of. Let's take a look at it. Won't hurt at all. Okay. So there's an entire database of these. For right now, I think we've had enough tooling around on the internet. If you feel like looking it up after this presentation, please feel free. Okay. According to CIO's magazine, article 9 Biggest Information Security Threats 2019, the first one is disruption from over-reliance on a fragile connectivity. Your internet connectivity can knock you out, and if your business depends on it, your business is underwater. The trust and the integrity of information is lost to distortion. Okay, this is information transferred between businesses B2B and between business and consumers B2C is necessary to have some kind of checks on it to make sure your integrity is here. Okay, so the first one is availability, the second one is integrity, and deterioration when controls are eroded by regulations and technology. Each control you put on to maintain some kind of guard, some mitigation against security vulnerability, these things age out because, as you saw with the kind of attacks we're getting, this is a never-ending arms race, a struggle against, I'll just call them the bad guys. So Let's break this down a little bit. Disruption from an over-reliance on a fragile connectivity, premeditated internet outages can bring trade to its knees. Things that require heavy amounts of communication, such as stock trading, commodities trading, things like that, banking, absolutely need that connectivity. And if things get knocked out, we are in trouble. Ransomware can hijack the Internet of Things. I don't know if you know about the Mirai botnet, where there's this massive botnet of hundreds of thousands of devices that technically are not computers themselves. Your set-top boxes from the cable company were being used as platforms to launch attacks as bots. When we say bots, we talk about robots or compromised computers. Used to be called zombies. Okay, so I have a bunch of computers that can launch attacks that are in my network, and that's called a botnet. The Mirai botnet used the Internet of Things to do that, and it was just tremendous. Privileged insiders coerced into giving up the crown jewels, which is to say, your policies and procedures are a weak point as long as people can be fooled into giving them up to someone in a phishing attack, for example. We'll talk about phishing in just a bit. Trust in the integrity of information is lost to distortion. Automated misinformation gains instant credibility. Falsified information compromises performance. Subverted blockchains shatter trust. Now, blockchain, if you didn't know, is the technology that Bitcoin uses, but there's other cryptocurrencies that use this. And if these get subverted in some way, if they get distorted, then their value becomes meaningless. You can lose a fortune. And here's the last one: deterioration when controls are eroded by regulations and technologies. Surveillance laws expose corporate secrets. If there is no way to encrypt your data so that it can't be seen by everyone, all of those sources that are taking surveillance leak. So when the federal government wanted to have a backdoor into all of Apple's devices, the problem they have with that, of course, is that you don't need to get into every device. Sufficient forensic resources exist to crack any device that exists right now, if you use them, if you want to pay for it. Privacy regulations impede the monitoring of insider threats. You cannot keep total and utter control of your employees just because it's not reasonable in terms of privacy. And a headlong rush to deploy AI, that is to say artificial intelligence, leads to unexpected outcomes. Vulnerability introduction: an AI system could initiate a new relationship with customers and suppliers and connect to an insecure external network. The misinterpretation of commands: a smart assistant could pick the wrong conversation or misunderstand instructions, leading it to process incorrect orders. Now, this is one of my big things. I'm not afraid of artificial intelligence so much as I am artificial stupidity. When they had a car that could drive itself, it still hit somebody and killed them. It didn't think, oh my goodness, let me kill that human. The programming was bad. It didn't see that person as actually being a vulnerable target to avoid. So think less Frankenstein or the Terminator, and think more of the Sorcerer's Apprentice, where the assistant makes the brooms bring water until he nearly drowns. So, disaster recovery and business continuity planning respond to more than just information security threats. Okay, there are other things out there: earthquakes, meteors and tsunamis, physical threats, terrorism, fire, severe storms, financial breaches, solar flares, hacktivism. Hacktivism is activity for political purposes that hack into computers and try to disrupt or change or disable organizations that the political activity wants taken out. Hooligan shenanigans. At one point, 10% of the internet was, of breaches on the internet were criminal activity, and 90% of it was just kids trying to hack around, show that they were cool, and they were, I believe the term is still used, elite, L-E-E-T, for the elite. But information security also, and over the course of time, these numbers have switched, and now 90% of your breaches involve financial criminal activity, and only a few of them are from kids just playing around, seeing if they can crack into your system. Power loss, equipment failure, all of these things can shut your systems down effectively as if you had been attacked in the real world. Okay, so how can we do this? What are we going to do? Get that sense of urgency going among your employees. Let them understand that it doesn't matter how smart you are if you're not paying attention. A well-crafted phishing attack, P-H-I-S-H, phishing, can get past 50% of all alerted security personnel. Okay, 50%. People who are looking for it, and people who are used to looking for these things. And you still got a 50-50 chance, which means it's like 90% of everybody else. So there is the training challenge. Train people to know they should go calm, they should be calm, go slow, because it doesn't matter how smart you are if you're not paying attention. Computers can never be totally secure as long as humans use them. As I said before, the best lock in the world won't help if someone props the door open. I worked in a place that had a lock that had a key card on it. And because it was inconvenient, I would always walk by and there would be a trash can propping the door open so people could go in and out. And that is information management in a nutshell. Make sure that your people are following the procedures meant to keep things safe. There is usually pushback to any process change, and it doesn't have to be security, any process change. The employees think, why are you making me change this? I've been doing this for so long. What's going on? Yada, yada, yada. But the reality of the situation is you have to change things as situation changes. Okay? If you can't engage team spirit, as sometimes is possible, explain InfoSec as self-interest, because it's your job that's on the line. And our company is important for you to have a job. Now I have a list of references here, and they're going to have my slides and post them as well, of where I came up with some of these items. And you might find it interesting if you're looking for further reading. These are places where I would go. Or you might just start with articles as they come up. And now it's question time. Do you have any questions for Uncle Al?
Excellent. Thank you so very much. This has been great, some great information, and appreciate you taking us through some of those websites as well. We do have some questions that have come in, so let's go ahead and get started here. The first question that's been submitted, does HTTPS still guarantee secure interaction?
Nothing guarantees secure interaction.
Excellent.
HTTP is a step towards more secure interactions, but nothing guarantees you secure interactions.
Excellent.
I could go into further, but this is more about management than technology at this point. But yeah, if you have the choice between using HTTP or HTTPS, by golly, certainly use the HTTPS, because that is another layer of encryption between endpoints, user and sender. Okay.
Great, thank you, Al. The next question that's been submitted here, do cloud storage solutions for backup files offer better overall security than home-based backup with respect to the threat of hacking into routers and hard drives?
It depends on the service and it depends on your situation. Actually, Mandiant Corporation did a survey of breaches, and on-premises backups did very well. Cloud-only service backups did very well. The biggest change was the hybrid solution, where you have some on-premises and some cloud solution. That's really the big issue. Do we have there's another concept I'd like to give you, is called an attack surface. Where will they come in and try to steal things? And the interface between your on-premises backup and your cloud backup is the big place for someone to try to intercept your communications. So if you have one, please make sure you know who you're dealing with and try to get your communications as secure as possible. Does that help?
Excellent. Yes, thank you so much, Al. The next question here comes from someone. What or where is the best training for a young person who wants to work in IT security? Do you have any thoughts on this?
Sure. Come to my class. I'm teaching a class this fall. No, actually, I've got one this spring. There's one in the fall as well. There's the thing about training in the 21st century is that there's so much stuff online for free. The best training you can get is usually the cheapest ones are college courses, because if you go to like SANS Institute, SANS, those courses are designed with a financial eye to the company, not the individual paying for them. So for what you can get in my class of 40 hours for, one university course, which is whatever it is per credit hour, um, it would cost you $3,500–4,000 from private organizations. Can you self-teach? Yes, you can self-teach. Is there stuff on YouTube? Sure there is. There is a lot of websites. There is, give me a second here. I'm totally drawing a blank, and I just talked to them this morning. I'm going to kill this here, if that's okay with you. Nope, not the one I wanted. Okay. Udemy is a good one. It gets information there. Oh, I'm trying to think. But nothing happens. When we record this, I'd like this to be cut out, because I don't need a brain fart to be memorialized for all time, if that's okay with you, Christy.
That's okay, Al. We can move to the next question too if you'd like. We
Please
have a
do.
few more coming
Yeah,
in
but
through. Yep.
there's a lot, but there's an awful lot of resources on the internet that you can prep for. You take a college course. Most colleges have some kind of introductory cybersecurity, and get started with a general course and then specify what you're most interested in. Start with a management course and move to computer science and engineering if you are that technically inclined. Okay?
All right, excellent. Al, the next question that's come through is how much of a risk are websites such as Google that are commonly in use by employees that actively data mine the user's activities and information?
A risk to the company or a risk to individual privacy?
Let's start with a risk to the company, but also maybe the individual privacy as well.
Your risk to company is probably not very great. The biggest issue there is going to be individual privacy. Google remembers everything you do better than you do. It knows more about me than I know about myself. It has a track of every place I've ever visited, everything I've ever asked about. Um, so in terms of security, if you use Google, that's a real problem. There are other search engines. There's DuckDuckGo, which doesn't actually keep the same kind of tracking information. They still track you in some manner, but they don't do it in the same uh, trash can full of references that Google does. Facebook is actually worse. So all of these things, if you want to limit things for your employees, tell them not to go to Facebook. There's a series of operations that'll allow you to block out websites, and even if they're doing it on their break or after work or something like that, don't have them use your company computers. Just don't. Does that help?
Yes, absolutely. And Al, the next question, are password managers really a dangerous compromise, user convenience and encryption?
I don't use one because I don't trust them. When I was teaching my first courses of information security, the textbook suggested to use a password manager because they generate larger passwords than you could possibly remember of random characters, upper lower case, special characters, numbers, those sorts of things, which increase the what's called the entropy of your password, um, and keep track of them. The issue, of course, though, is it's a single sign-on. You have a one password to get into that system that has the keys to the kingdom, that has everything that you're going to need to get to any of your systems anywhere else. And because of that, I don't trust them. And like I said, the first time I was teaching this course, the textbook said, use a password manager. It's the way to go, this, that, and the other thing. With a math textbook or a English textbook, you can use the same textbook for decades, or at least a decade, figure a dozen years, right? Information security, I check the news before I go into a class to make sure I'm not lying to my students. That day, they found a breach in, and I won't name this particular kind of software, but it was a password manager that there was a breach with the main password, okay? Um, and as you saw from all the attacks we're getting, we are constantly under threat. Um, however, if you are a low risk person, that is to say, you don't go to a lot of, well, questionable websites, which I do because I'm a security researcher, so I go all kinds of terrible places. Um, it's less of an issue, less people trying to track you. But be serious, I have been hacked as well, okay? The closest thing is not burglars or robbers, but con games. If you look at a history of confidence tricksters over the course of history, many of those techniques are still in use to get people to go to places they would not go and give up their information that they should not give up. Okay?
Excellent. Definitely, yes. Al, we do have another question here
Yes.
that's been submitted. How can anyone trust data storage in cloud or PW managers when we constantly hear about hacks into data centers?
Hmm. At this point, one of the biggest problems in hacks into data centers is ransomware. And the best thing you can do about that is to have backups, have your own backups. Your information security in the cloud right now is probably better than it is on your home computer. This is, this is not knowing who you are or what your system is, but my system is locked down so hard that I can't get about 25%, 30% of the websites because my browser just won't even go there. It just throws elements out right off that are vulnerable. And if your operational system is in the cloud, like AWS or Google Cloud or Azure, the Microsoft version, it's probably pretty secure. But the reality of the situation is their cloud security is a shared governance model. That is to say, they are responsible for their equipment, for their communications, and for their policies and procedures. Everything that you are hosting on there as a virtual machine, it's just like having a computer of your own that someone else is holding for you, is your responsibility. And if your responsibility hasn't been brought up to snuff, if you're not secure when you post it to the cloud, guess what? It's still not secure, and AWS and Azure and Google will not take responsibility for your particular system. Do we understand that? That is a shared responsibility. They're good for their equipment, but not for whatever you post to them. Does that help?
Yes, it does, Al. Thank you. A few more questions here coming in. One, any tips about identity theft insurance?
That's a really good question, and I don't have an answer to that, but I can find out some more for you. I don't have identity theft insurance, and I'm very careful, but I've been hacked, okay, over the course of time, because one of my axioms is, remember, doesn't matter how smart you are if you're not paying attention. I had something off a website I wanted, and my browser was open with lots of tabs, and the adversary, the attacker, was able to gather information from one of my other systems, and they hacked my Gmail account because I wanted something. Okay, this is what I mean. Con men usually find something you want to distract you while you're getting your pocket picked. So, am I on target, or if I wandered away from the question? What's the question again?
No? Yep, you were fine with that question, Al, and we have a
Okay.
couple more here too. So,
I'd love to hear it.
yeah, the next one here, is it a good practice to back up your own data into an external hard drive?
Yes. Yes, external hard drives are preposterously cheap at this point. For $100, you can get a 4 terabyte hard drive that will be able to take probably everything off of your home computer if you have a reasonable amount of data on your home computer. I wouldn't say, don't put all those bootleg movies you've ripped and downloaded off the internet onto that, but your operating system, your data files, your important things, yes, that is actually a good practice, is to use an external hard drive. I have one on my machine. Actually, I have
Fantastic.
two. Don't think about it.
Super. And while we're on security here too, is having Norton Utility to protect your own hard drive good enough?
I'm going to be unhelpful here and say until it isn't. Okay. The technology that you're working with constantly changes. And again, you have to download patches and upgrades and updates and all of these things. And the recent solar winds made those things more suspect. All of these processes that we've counted on for years are now under threat, under attack. but any kind of software that gives you more security, whether it's Avast or Norton or Malwarebytes or any of these things, is an advantage that you should not overlook. At least try. But again, follow common sense. Don't go to bad websites with your computer that's got your financial data on it. If you want to have a site where you just go to gaming sites or um, fan fiction sites or something like that for your kids. One of my friends lost a computer. He lost 3 hard drives in 3 months because his kids would go to the Harry Potter fan fiction website, which is full of viruses. And had to reformat the hard drive like 3 times. So have one system that you could use as high priority and another that you use for your vital priority information, the same way a business would.
Great, thank you, Al. The next question we have here, are there proven methods framing of information security concerns that result in greater adoption or buy-in from team members, or does it vary dependent on business focus and what regulations a company must meet?
I'll go with the second one. It varies widely depending on what the company focuses and the people involved. I mean, management doesn't exist in a vacuum. You're working with people, and people are different. Um, One of the things about project management is knowing your resources, and that is knowing your people. All of these things very much are dependent on who you're dealing with. Some people need to be scolded, some people need to be cajoled, some people need to have a shoulder to cry on, other people need to have their feet held to the fire. Some people need to, but you can't do this in a vacuum. You have to know who you're working with. If you try punitive, threatening things to everyone, you will lose not only your security focus, you'll probably lose employees. So you have to be very much cognizant of who's working for you, how they work, what their work style is, and what is the best way to get them to be compliant with the security procedures and policies that you're making.
Excellent. Al, the next question we have here is, can you get substantial protection if you work with critical files on a PC that's not connected to www and do internet tasks on a separate machine?
Yes, you can, um, but sooner or later you're going to want to connect to things. You're going to want to, um, I don't know, it depends on how much discipline you have. I don't have enough discipline not to. In my house, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 computers that are computers, and that doesn't include my smartphones, which are also computers, and my Roku, which is also a computer in its own way, um, et cetera, et cetera. And all of those machines at one point or another were connected to the internet. If you have the discipline to be able to do something, and then the term is sneaker net, that is to say, put files on a jump drive, carry it from one place to another, and then put it into that machine with the one connection you have to the internet. Yes, you can do that. Is that more secure? If a computer is not connected to anything else, it is by nature, by definition, more secure. However, how practical is it? What's the cost of it? What is it going to do? Okay. And you can spend time locking things down to give you more security. As some of the questions have asked, what about Norton? What about this? What about that? Use virus checkers, use as system monitors. All of these things are useful. Whatever advantage you can get, because we are in a threat-filled environment, use whatever you can get.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Al. And I know we're nearing the top of the hour here. So, as we begin to wrap things up, I just want to say thank you so very much on behalf of the Office of Alumni Engagement and the UB School of Management. Al, for giving us your time today, sharing your knowledge and your expertise with us. We are so very grateful. As a reminder, we've also recorded today's session. We're going to send you all the links within the next 24 hours. And I know Al mentioned you can have the slides as well. Those are, we did go ahead and upload those to GoToWebinar. He has all the references on his page where he got his information, some of those web links, so feel free to browse those at your leisure as well. Also, save the date for next Wednesday, February 3rd, as we'll be joined by UB alumna Laura Ashburn. Lauren is going to speak on the topic of understanding Alzheimer's and dementia, and more information on that webinar, all of our upcoming webinars, as well as our webinar archive library can be found on our webpage. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Uncle Al for our
Okay.
closing remarks.
The closing remarks is if you want to learn about information security, the internet is full of places to learn about information security. There is Cybrary, which was the one I was trying to remember because they contacted me today. There is Udemy. There is Coursera. Coursera is actually free if you don't want any supporting documentation for it, but being self-taught has its limitations. You don't have anyone you can ask questions. I was self-taught for computers for decades. But when I went back to college for my master's, I learned more in the first couple of months than I had in 20 years. Okay, it was different things, of course, and my questions were seriously focused by that point. A serious education, a structured education allows you to have a way to organize the questions that you have, organize the information you already have, and to express those to others to explain this. And sometimes in the business world, that's the most important thing. Not just what are you doing, what can you explain to your boss about why you're doing it? Okay?
Fantastic. Excellent. Thank you so much again, Al. Thank you all for joining us. Take care, stay well, and enjoy the rest of your day. Go Bulls.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Al.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.